Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Legends. Specifically, welcome to an early monster analysis on Mephisto. If you check the monstergram right now, this is the newest and latest fire legendary monster. He is monster number 630, Mephisto. And the cool thing about this monster is that he's essentially Dunn raw. Check out his traits. Demon and Status Caster Mega Taunt. Mega Taunt is what makes Dunn raw so powerful. And if you've ever fought a Dunn raw, if you have Dunn raw yourself, you would know that she's pretty much game changing. It doesn't matter who the enemy has, how faster they are than you. If you have Dunn raw on the team, the ability to draw attacks towards itself, AoEs and single target attacks, is so darn powerful and so game changing. While the fact that we're getting another monster with the exact same thing, Mega Taunt, is quite incredible. But on top of that, as you can see, he has the demon trait, which makes status effects 20% less accuracy, and on top of that, you have immunity to burn and ignite, and that is super valuable considering 1, he is in the fire element, and fire monsters tend to have burn and ignition, and 2, torture effects are some of the best ways to get rid of tanks. If you've ever taken on Dunn raw, Clipium, any tank in the game, you just apply some torture effects, and before you know it, their HP drops to 0. But with that being said, once again, this is an early analysis on this monster because we don't officially have information from Social Point themselves on the forum or on the Discord page. However, there is information on the Spanish wiki, monsterlegends.fandom.com. There'll be a link in the description if you want to see for yourself. So we're going to do the analysis from that website. Alright, so here we have Mephisto, and I'm going to do this is going to be an analysis that's also like a comparison to Dunn raw because I think it's only fair. So Mephisto, his strength is 3421, which is a pretty low power, and that doesn't really matter considering this monster is a tank. His life stat, however, is 46,446, which is officially the tankiest fire monster in the game. He outplaces Aggressors by around 4,000 life points. And actually, in the whole realm of legendary monsters, this is the highest life stat. So yes, this monster is tied with Dunn raw for the highest life in the game. And for speed, we have 3388, which is rather slow in the fire category, in any category really. But actually here, let me compare it with Dunn raw. The stats are pretty much tied, right? Same life stat, same speed stat. The only difference is the strength, which in my personal opinion doesn't really matter too much. These monsters aren't going to be really attacking the enemy. Well, they do have torture effects, which is great. But yeah, the power stat doesn't really matter. So in terms of stats, they're pretty much tied. If you really want, you can say that Dunn raw takes it because of the higher strength stat. But in my personal opinion, that doesn't matter. In terms of trait, once again, this monster has Demon and Mega Taunt. So Dunn raw, same thing. Well, not except for Demon, she actually has Tough. So her trait, you could argue it's technically better because she has a 15% chance to not get hit with negative effects, whereas Mephisto, it's only a 20% chance. But then again, you have the guaranteed immunity to burn and ignition. So it's up to you to decide which one is truly better, but I think I would take the Tough, the 15% extra chance to not get hit with negative effects. In terms of books, this monster is in the Spirits book, the Underworld book, and Evil Legions. And as for Dunn raw, she's in Winged, she's in Female, and she is in Villains as well as Elite. Now here's the thing, because these monsters don't share any books, it's fair to say that they are going to dominate within their own books. They're going to be go-to monsters. If there's ever a situation where the enemy monster outpace you, you put on your Mega Taunt monster and you're good to go. So honestly, no one really has an advantage. I'm actually surprised if this monster doesn't end up being an elite monster, then you can argue Mephisto's way better because, you can trade elite cells. So if you can actually trade cells for Mephisto and your whole team can get an army of Mephistos, that'll be insane. And yeah, one advantage Dunn raw does actually have is that she has the skills group 4 skills, but you can also argue that's a disadvantage because in order to get those skills, you need to rank her up. Whereas Mephisto, you're going to see that his skills are actually really, really great. You might even argue Mephisto's skills are better than Dunn raw skills, even though Dunn raw has skills group 4 skills. But yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. One place they really do differ a lot is in their relics. Mephisto can hold a sword and an armor relic, whereas Dunn raw can hold a trap and a mask. Now, I love the trap and the mask. I think that's a great combination for tanks because there's so much you can do. As far as traps, you can run the Oblation trap, and if your HP falls below 50%, you drain enemy stamina. And then if you have a mask, if you have the healing mask, you can recover HP. So you can utilize that combo. You can also use an exhaustion mask, so the enemy monster that attacks you, you can drain their stamina. Really good against Baltic and Charmless and monsters with extra turn skills, because you have the exhaustion mask and the Oblation trap to just drain enemy stamina. But there's plenty of stuff you can utilize. With Mephisto, on the other hand, I'm not the biggest fan of the sword relic. The armor relic I think works perfectly for tanks. when we take a look at the, well, let's start with armor. When we take a look at armor, I mean, just look at some of those diamond ones. Then Nabotis's armor. After being hit, if wearer's life is below 50%, it heals the wearer by up to 62,000 points, and it gives stamina. That's great. So if your HP ever falls below 50%, you can pretty much restore all of your HP and stamina. Patrice's armor, after being hit, if wearer's stamina is below 25%, removes stamina from all enemies. After being hit, if wearer's stamina is above 75%, removes stamina from the attacker. Atum's armor, at the start of the battle, you start off with armor. The heavy duty armor, if you get attacked, you gain armor. So pretty much a lot of ways to stay alive, right? Really useful for tanks. If we look at the swords, in my personal opinion, I don't think they're necessarily the best for a tank. I mean, if you do manage to deny the enemy by freezing, or by possessing, or stunning, you could utilize one of the golden swords, which gives you armor. The soul shattering greatsword will drain enemy stamina if the enemy is possessed. You could also technically even utilize a Jakugan sword or Nishin sword if the scenario fits. The Jakugan sword will deal extra damage to the enemy, but these really go more on attackers than on tanks. Because again, like you saw, he doesn't have a high power stat, his skills aren't going to be doing too much damage. So really, I don't think the sword relic is necessarily the best, but definitely the armor works for Mephisto. So in terms of relics, I guess right now we can argue that Dunn takes it, but also keep in mind that in the future, Social Point could release a bunch of new swords, a bunch of new armor, so that could always change. But let's just get into the skills. So we'll start off with the ultimate, Abandon All Hope. This attacks multiple enemies. It basically applies Curse, which will drain 10% of HP and stamina for the next 3 turns, and every single turn it'll double. So 10%, then 20, then 40. Ignition, which will deal 20% of HP for the next 2 turns. So on the first turn, the enemies are going to lose 30%, but take a look at this. They'll also lose 50% of their life. So you activate your ultimate, the enemy loses 50% of their HP, and when it's their turn, Curse will take away 10% of the HP, and Ignition will take away 20. That's already 80% of their life gone just like that, snap of a finger. This is an insane ultimate, especially because most likely you will get this like after the first turn, right? You'll get it turn 2, turn 3. By then, the enemy is probably way below 80% of the HP, and they'll just get destroyed. So that is a fantastic ultimate, especially on this tanky monster. Moving on, default skills, not worth talking about. Skill group 1 skills, we have Hades Roll, which applies Stamina Leak to a single enemy monster. We have Hellfire Bark, which applies Ignition and Burn. No, wait, that's Burning and Ignite. So Burning deals 15% of HP for the next 3 turns. So together, Ignition and Burn, that's 35% of HP. So 2 torture effects. I actually like this. It has a 1-turn cooldown, and it costs 21 stamina. I like this because if you're facing other tanks, if you're facing Dunn, you apply the Ignition and Burn, that's 35% of Dunn HP gone just like that with a skills group 1 skill. Against another Mephisto, it obviously won't work because this is what the demon trait protects against, but it's not a bad skill for skills group 1. Moving over to Hellbound Howl, this skill has a 1-turn cooldown, costs 22 stamina, and it removes 50% of stamina. So this, and you're gonna see this monster, even though he's a tank, he has stamina draining skills, which can definitely be utilized. We saw it in skills group 1, right? We have Stamina Leak, and then we have the 50% stamina drain removal, and then we have torture effects. So this monster has a lot up his arsenal. Moving on over to skills group 2, let's see what we have here. This time we have a Curse and a Blind. I love that. It is again a single target. It's not an AoE single target, but Curse again reducing HP and stamina, but then Blind reducing accuracy, so even if the enemy wastes stamina attacking you, there's a good chance they'll miss. And now we get into AoEs. Sit and Intimidate. This has a 2-turn cooldown and only costs 20 stamina. This will actually apply Nightmares. Okay, you know what? I take it back. The Sword Relic does actually work for this, especially if you have Nishin Sword. After hitting, if target has Nightmares, it can deal up to 12,000 points of dark damage, and it can remove up to 180 points of stamina from the damaged enemies. So Mephisto, even though he's a tank, with this skill right here, you have basically an AoE 100% stamina drain. And your relic doesn't even need to be leveled up all the way, because the skill itself will remove 50% of stamina. So this is an AoE 50% stamina removal with an AoE Nightmares on top of that. And by the way, Nightmares also removes stamina, 10% of stamina each turn. So every turn the enemy loses 14 stamina. Nightmares, the enemies will lose 5% of their stamina. You can use your Nishin Sword. And yeah, you have so much torture to work with. You can apply Curse, you can apply Burn, you can apply Ignition. In terms of Stamina Leak, you can do Nightmares for 10% stamina drain, Curse for 10, 20, then 40, and Stamina Leak for 15 every turn. And we're not even done. Let's keep on going. Hades Fetch. This skill actually deals 40 damage. Impressive. 2 turn cooldown, 23 stamina. And this is an AoE Stamina Leak. So here we have AoE Nightmares. Here we have AoE Stamina Leak. So if you cycle these two skills back to back, the enemies are pretty much going to have no stamina. And then let's keep on going. We have another AoE, Hellfire Bite. This skill has a 3 turn cooldown and costs only 18 stamina. This is a self skill, so this skill actually applies Burn and Ignition, and it gives you an extra turn. What the heck is this monster? What in the world? So you can literally burn everyone and ignite everyone. That is a 35% HP loss. You give yourself another turn, which then allows you to apply your nightmares. So that's an extra 5% HP loss and stamina loss. Oh, and you drain 50% of the stamina. And then on the next turn, you can apply Stamina Drain. That is so darn powerful. Thank goodness this monster doesn't have an AoE curse. Then he would be truly vicious. So yeah, no reason to run Hellfire Bark or no reason to run Hades Roll when you have the AoE versions here. And this is just, I don't know of any other monster that has, I'm going to apply 2 torture effects and give myself an extra turn. For a tank, for a super slow tank, that is so incredible. Actually, I feel like making this monster fast. I feel like giving him 2 speed and a life or something. And just having him go first and just DOT everyone. My goodness. 15%, 20%, that's 35. And then Nightmares, that's what, 40? And then 15% Stamina Drain? My goodness. And then 50, what the heck is this monster? And we're not even done. Through the Circles, this is a single target skill. And this is 100% stamina removal. So if you find yourself in a situation where you need just 100% stamina drain, go for it. And we have one more skill, You Shall Not Pass. This skill is a self skill, and it actually reapplies the Mega Taunt, which, let's be honest, you might need considering you have that self skill, which will reduce the Mega Taunt, the Status Caster Mega Taunt by 1 turn. And unlike the other monsters that apply Mega Taunt, unlike Dunn Raw, this monster actually gives himself a shield. A legendary phobic shield, where he will absorb all damage except legendary attacks. Meaning, if you were to fight a Voltic, and Voltic was to hit you with static shocks, 20k volts, 50k volts, they would deal absolutely 0 damage. The only skill that Voltic would be able to deal that actually deals damage would be his Electrodynamic Assault or Aggression, right? If you're fighting a Charmless, Charmless is only going to be able to hit you with Epic Quest. So basically, the only attacks that will land against you are legendary based attacks, which is really useful because if you're fighting a water monster, you know this monster's fire, water is the elemental advantage. Let's say you're fighting a Thetis' pet that only has really strong water based attacks. I'm sorry, like, you're going to be doing absolutely 0 damage. So that's amazing. I love that he can draw attacks to himself and then at the same time block everything except legendary attacks. Now yes, most legendary monsters have legendary based attacks, but it is just a very, very useful shield. I like that a lot. So I think what most people are going to be doing are they're going to run You Shall Not Pass and then all of the AoE skills, right? And then obviously it depends on you. You might be thinking, you know what, I don't need, you might be thinking, I don't need the AoE Nightmares. Instead of AoE Nightmares, I'll just run the 100% Stamina Drain because that'll come in handy. And that's true. You might need a single target 100% Stamina Drain, and his stamina cost is extremely low, 16, 18, my goodness. I think it goes without saying Hellfire Bite is a must-have. It goes without saying Sit and Intimidate is a must-have. Like, it really, really is. And you could even argue you might just run Hellbound Hell just because it's the 50% stamina drain. You know, you might not need the 100% stamina drain that has a 2-turn cooldown. You might operate better on a 1-turn cooldown. So maybe you can cycle better. But yeah, it goes without saying Hellfire Bite again. Definitely run that. Sit and Intimidate, definitely run that. I think the Stamina Leak can definitely help. There's also arguments to running the Curse and Blind skill. Don't count this out. You know, especially the Blind, reducing enemy accuracy, that you could argue might be even more useful than applying like an AoE Stamina Leak. Because you also got to consider, by your second turn, like if on turn 1 you Hellfire Bite and Sit and Intimidate, what are you going to do on your second turn? Is there still reason to AoE Nightmares everyone? Or did you already kill an enemy monster? Did you already kill maybe 2 enemy monsters? Because if you've already killed 1 or 2 enemy monsters, maybe you might just want to Curse and Blind one enemy monster. Because they already have the Burn and Ignite, and they already have the Nightmares. You might be better off applying a Curse and reducing their accuracy. So those are some things to consider. You Shall Not Pass, I think you'll also definitely need to run. But again, you can always vary. You can change the skills for free now. It could always fit the situation. And so the reason I said this monster may be better than Dunn Raw is because when we look at Dunn Raw, like, don't get me wrong, I love the Curse and Nightmares, and actually that is like a very meta skill, definitely like next gen kind of skill. But you gotta rank up Dunn Raw to get this amazing skill. Whereas Mephisto, heck, Skills Group 2 has amazing skills. And yeah, Skills Group 3, the Hellfire Bite, that's where it's at. Is this better than Curse and Nightmares? I guess not really. But this, I don't know, giving yourself an extra turn, I think that really makes it worth it. And comparing the skills that give the Megatons, one advantage Dunn Raw does have is she will give herself control immunity, so you won't have to worry about getting stunned, frozen, mega frozen, or possessed. So you could argue that's better than Mephisto's legendary phobic shield. But this is the first time we've seen this shield, and considering you're a tank and your whole ability is really just to tank attacks, right? Like if Dunn Raw did get frozen or stunned, it doesn't matter as long as that Megaton is still active. As long as she's absorbing attacks, that's good. So yeah, the immunity control is great, but with Mephisto, limiting the kind of attacks, the kind of damage you receive to only legendary attacks, I think that's more fitting of the tank, you know, the tank purpose of a monster. But yeah, looking at the other skills, Deadly Riddle, major damage reduction, 50% less damage from attacks, a bleeding, an AoE bleeding, an AoE blind. You know, they're good skills, but you know, you don't need to rank up a Mephisto to get them. So I have two questions for you guys. First of all, what do you think about Mephisto? Do you think this is actually going to be the official stats and official skills? Keep in mind, it's unofficial. This is from the Spanish wiki. Link in the description if you want to follow along. And then I also want to know, if you had to choose between a Dunn Raw or a Mephisto, who would you choose and why? What in your opinion makes one monster better than another monster? Once again, they are in completely different books, they're in completely different elements, so these two monsters can coexist without really having to fight one another. But if you had to pick only one of these monsters, I'm just curious, based on the stats, the relics, the skills, who would you choose and why? What is the breaking point between one monster that you like more over the other? Whatever thoughts you may have, let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much, and I will see you all next time.